Hey everybody, John Gapinski with GameCoreOnline.com here. You can also find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/GameCoreLLC. Today I brought you a post-Return to Ravnica standard deck that I put together that I call 4-Color Good Stuff. Now, 4-Color Good Stuff runs green, red, black, and white. It's 25 lands and 35 spells. We're going to take a minute and we're going to go through and we're going to look at the whole deck list for a second here. But then we're going to go through and we're going to look at it card for card and including card strategies. And we're going to talk a little bit about why I came to these decisions, which cards that I decided on over other cards, and why I decided on those cards over other cards. The one thing that you're seeing here that is a little bit inaccurate, let's say, is the top part of these cards here. Now, there's about one more of each of the cards along the top. Farseek, Restoration Angel, Thragtusk, all that stuff on the top row there is just a little bit cut off. But if you bear with us, you'll be able to see every single card in its exact amount of numerations all across the rest of this video. So the first card that I want to go over is actually the reason that I built the deck. Bonfire of the Damned. I got to the drawing board and I said, if there's one card that I got to build a deck around in this new Return to Ravnica standard format, what was it going to be? Bonfire was definitely at the tops of my list. The card that was second on my list, Thragtusk. So that led me to the green-red basis for which this deck was going to be built. Now, I can't lie, I kind of bought into what everybody was saying about, hey, look, Jund is back, here's the Jund colors, go ahead. And I had already considered building a Jund ramp deck. So now that I knew that I was going to be playing both Bonfire and Thragtusk, there was no way for me to avoid the next card, Huntmaster of the Fells. Red-green, we all know what he does, don't need to preface that. But in this metagame, what I believe he's going to do is he's going to be another dual threat. You get 2 creatures and 2 life out of it, slows down the zombie player, gives you a little bit of oomph against those control matchups, as well as just being an all-around good creature in those colors. Next card, we got a newcomer, and this is what kind of pulled me out of Jund after doing some play testing. I couldn't argue with the concept that Naya had, or even just green-white for that matter, had the better creature package. You know, I've already got Thragtusk, I've got Huntmaster, Armada Worm fits in there perfectly. 10 power of trample creature for 6 mana that has synergy with our next card, the Restoration Angel. Now, it's almost like this deck is built around Restoration Angel at this point. I want you to consider something here. For all of you that remember playing Shards of Alara, Jund was such a powerful deck, and here's why. It played the best cards in the format, and Bloodbraid Elf was absolutely busted. You got to get 2 card abilities out of 1. You'd pay a red, a green, 2 colorless, get a 3/2 body and make them pitch 2 cards and take 3 damage, or you'd get a 2/2 Putrid Leech that could become 4/4, or a Maelstrom Pulsar. The list goes on. I mean, the card was very powerful. I would argue that Restoration Angel is as powerful or more powerful in this standard format with these cards that go with it. Consider this. If you would have had the ability to pinpoint your Bloodbraid Elf so that you could go, okay, I'm going to cascade into a 2/2 and 2 life, or a 3/3 and 5 life, or a 5/5 trample, that you'd be just as well off as cascading into any of the things that the Bloodbraid Elf did. But we'll take it one step further here. Restoration Angel takes a single white and 3 colorless, so a lot easier to play, and even with still very good mana fixing. On top of that, I'll take a 3/4 flyer over a 3/2 haste any day of the week, and on top of that, you have the ability to save your creature and do a lot of combat tricks. Consider what you can do here when you have, let's say, a Huntmaster and a Restoration Angel. You pass your turn, you flip your Huntmaster, you shoot something, you wait for him to attack, you blink your guy, you get all kinds of combat tricks, you get to kill a bunch of his stuff, you gain 2 more life. Really good. Take it a step further. Now you got Thragtusk. So not only do you gain 5 life and get a 3/3 when you blink a Thragtusk, you also get this element when you don't have the cards. One where your opponent says, okay, he has 4, 5, 6 mana untapped, and he has a tapped Thragtusk. So that means you already got to beat in for 5. You actually got to do damage with your Thragtusk. Now, your opponent has to consider, well, if he plays a Restoration Angel and blinks the Thragtusk, this is going to be a one-sided combat, and it could completely end the game. Or you can do it at the end of turn and present an additional 6 damage that your opponent didn't see coming, which can be the combat math on their life total that ends the game. Same thing with Armada Worm. I honestly am not sure which one I'd rather blink if I had both of them, but it's just one of those things where more options are better, and this gives you plenty of options. Restoration Angel is probably one of the best cards in the format when combined with these creatures, especially the one that this package offers. Now, the next card here, Angel of Serenity, she has no synergy with the Restoration Angel, of course, but I think currently her full power is a little underestimated. I mean, consider if this card just said, put 3 cards from the battlefield into the player's hands. You'd be like, wow, a 5/6 flyer that bounces 3 of their creatures, that's pretty darn good. Well, that's exactly what it does, because not only does it take them away, but if they kill your angel, they come back to their hand, not to play. And I think we're so used to evaluating older cards, well, newer cards based on older cards that have similar effects. I think we need to note that these cards don't come back to play. They go back to their hand. So the tempo loss is already huge. Now, on top of that, if you're afraid they could kill your angel, then all you really need to do is grab a couple of your own threats. Maybe it's something that's in play, or maybe it's something that's in your graveyard, just depending on what you got going on. And you get that card back to your hand. So there's a lot of options. Once again, options are very good in a deck. Bringing a Thragtusk, maybe even from play, and turning it into just a 3/3. Meanwhile, having something you can play the next turn to gain 5 life doesn't seem bad to me if they kill your angel. Now, this next card, you can use to get rid of that angel if you need to. Selesnya Charm. Personally, I believe that Selesnya Charm is the best standard charm, even above Izzet Charm and Azorius Charm. I think all the charms are actually good, despite what many people think, and maybe the Rakdos Charm and Golgari Charm truly deserve a spot in the sideboard, but Selesnya Charm is something I want to focus on for a second here. The first line that I really, not the actual first line of the card, but the first line that I want to focus on is exile target creature with power 5 or greater. Consider how many people are going to be running decks like this or decks like Frights. The ability to remove those creatures at instant speed for 2 mana is very good. On top of that, your own ability to, again, like I said, exile your own angel to potentially bring back Thragtusks from your graveyard, from play, wherever it might be. There's a lot of options in that. The 2/2 Knight, very good against decks like Zombie, because it fills out your curve. So here you have a situation where you're playing against the Zombie player, and they are fast. There's no doubt. There's a reason why that deck is getting a lot of pub, and it's because the deck is very fast. You got Rancor, you got a lot of quick creatures. Sometimes just going turn 4 Huntmaster, turn 5 Thragtusk isn't fast enough. Having the Selesnya Charm in a 2 spot to make a 2/2 Knight to block and trade with the Zombie is very, very good. And then when you mix that into the overall curve of the deck, it really helps buy you some time. So I really like the Selesnya Charm. And don't sleep on the +2/+2 and Trample. I mean, consider the creatures that this deck is already running. I mean, you have Thragtusk, a 5/3 that gets chump blocked, is much less powerful than a surprise 7/5 Trample that comes right over the top if blocked by, say, a Lingering Souls token, or, you know, an Avacyn's Pilgrim, or a Knight, or a double strike creature that they suppose, you know, like a Silverblade Paladin. He's only going to be doing 4, so you put this on your Thragtusk, well, now you're going to be trampling over for a heck of a lot of damage. So I really like that card. You're going to keep your guy alive. Selesnya Charm is very, very good. The next couple cards that I'm going to preface on here highlight the need for black. Because like I said, when I conceived this deck, I was buying into the notion that we were going to play Jund. The Jund was very good. And then I found the power of the white creatures, and I ended up playing the Naya. But I realized I didn't have a lot of game against decks that ran Planeswalkers. Planeswalkers like Jace and Tamiyo are very powerful in the format if you can't check them. And now a lot of the creatures in the deck, they do a good job of trying to take care of that. You know, the Armada Worm is 2 creatures. The Huntmaster is 2 creatures. That's a little harder for a Tamiyo to deal with. But at the same time, I wanted to be able to just outright deal with their Planeswalkers. To me, Dreadbore is one of the most powerful new cards that we've seen in a very long time. And here's why. Again, when it comes to the whole evaluating of new cards, we always look to what we've seen in the past and how it applied in those metas. So here we have a situation where let's say your opponent has a Tamiyo in play and you have a creature. Now a Tamiyo at 5 counters tapping down your only threat, your opponent is definitely going to feel like that Tamiyo is safe. And in most situations that Tamiyo is going to be safe unless you're playing like a Thundermaw Hellkite or something that could come over the top, some very powerful spell to try to have come in and deal with Tamiyo. Same thing with the new Jace. The new Jace is very powerful. Do not sleep on that card. That +1 ability is much better than you think, and the -2 ability is just absolutely great. I'm sure if you can ultimate the card, there's something you can put in the deck. You can make it really disgusting too. But Dreadbore kind of changes the way you have to think about all of these things. If you play the Jace and you +1 the counter, or you play the Tamiyo and you +1 the counter, and I simply Dreadbore it, you just lost 5 mana. You just lost 4 mana. You just spent your whole turn. I'm probably casting a Huntmaster with that or a Thragtusk because I have the mana because Dreadbore only costs 2. And if you're not running a Planeswalker, then I can kill a creature. Maybe you're playing Frights. Maybe I'm killing Grizzlebrand. Maybe I'm killing your Angel of Serenity. So Dreadbore is very powerful to me, and I think it's quite underrated. The next card I'm going to talk about is another splash for black card, Rakdos Return. Now the reason I'm only running 2 of this card, despite the fact that I think it is incredibly powerful, is that again, I don't want to see multiple of it, and I really don't want to see it at all against a green-black zombies deck. However, if I'm running into a Jund matchup, a Bant matchup, a control matchup, maybe Grixis control, blue-white control, or even a mirror match, Rakdos Return is invaluable. Having Farseeks, having Key Runes, you have the ability to, on a turn 4 or 5, be making them pitch 4 cards. And I can tell you, when you're playing a mid-range deck, you probably have things like Thragtusk and Huntmaster or Jace or Tamiyo when you're down to your last 4 cards in your hand. Discarding those 4 cards could very easily end the game right then and there. On top of that, since it deals damage over having them lose life, you have the ability to kill a Planeswalker while making them discard the cards. So I have 2 right now in the main deck, and I think that's the right number. I've loved it every time I've drawn it, whether they had 4 cards or 0 cards, because frankly 8, 6, whatever, damage over the top is very good, and it also is another answer to Planeswalkers when you need it to be. Alright, so let's look at some of the fixing here and why we are able to go 4 colors. When I was playing the new version, the Naya over the Jund, I realized that ultimately the mana base for a Naya deck runs exactly the same with a small splash for black. It's absolutely seamless. I can't even tell you. But 4 Farseeks are really good in this deck because not only does it get you a turn earlier on the Huntmaster or the Thragtusk or the Angel or the Armada Worm, it also grabs you many different options of lands. I mean, you have all of the shock lands available to you as well as the basic lands in the deck. Now, we've prefaced on the next card for our mana fixing already with the Restoration Angel, but Borderland Ranger was very good in the old Shards of Alara Jund deck, and it's because he was a body as well as card fixing, pulling lands out of your deck, thinning your deck a little bit, and helping you fix, especially in a 4-color deck like this. It's very useful. But remember, it is also a blocker against zombies, and it fits right into that mana curve that I was talking about before. You got Farseek at 2, you've got the Borderland Ranger at 3, the Huntmaster at 4, the Thragtusk at 5. So seeing this guy against zombies is very good, and seeing him in general is very good. You know, he grabs quite a few different lands in the deck. It grabs 8 possible targets, and it really gives us the opportunity to fix a 4-mana deck, meanwhile staying competitive with the quick aggro decks. The next card that I feel kind of does the same thing is Rakdos Key Rune. Now, Rakdos Key Rune's special in the sense that you could be running Chromatic Lantern, and I've heard a lot of cases for that. But unless you're really getting greedy and you're trying to run, let's say, 5 color, or you're running 4 color with Amizium mortars that you want to be able to overload, which I did try, then maybe Chromatic Lantern's going to be better. But Rakdos Key Rune is very powerful against decks like zombies. Consider you're playing against a fairly competent zombies player. If they don't have the Tragic Slip, they're probably not going to swing into an open Rakdos Key Rune when it's not going to yield them anything. So you can kind of gauge how your opponent's what your opponent has by how your opponent's playing around your Key Rune. And not to mention you still have Restoration Angels and you have Selesnya Charm. So you really, by leaving your mana open and threatening the possibility for a Rakdos Key Rune, doesn't even mean that that's exactly what you were going to do. So this deck has a lot of opportunities to present a board that your opponent's going to be very shy to attack into. I went with the Rakdos Key Rune over the Selesnya Key Rune only because ultimately I felt like the Rakdos Key Rune blocks every single creature in the zombies deck without trading, whereas the Selesnya Key Rune would have died to a Dragmauler or died to a Geralf's Messenger. So when you look at the total RAM package here, we have the 2 Borderland Rangers, 4 Farseeks, 2 Rakdos Key Runes, all very good at getting you an early Thragtusk, Armada Worm, Huntmaster, while staving off the early beats of a deck like zombies, green-black zombies, or maybe a red-black vampire. So now let's take a look at the mana base directly. We run 25 lands, of which we only have a total of 8 that could even possibly come into play untapped on turn 1. So, being that we only run 2 drops and above, we don't have to worry about a turn 1 comes into play tapped land. If it happens, it happens. The odds of us dropping on turn 2 or 3 or beyond any land that comes into play tapped is really an unreasonable thought. So this deck actually has a much better mana base than the old Jund deck, which only ran 3 colors and ran the tricolor land. There's a great opportunity here for us to capitalize on the lands like Sunpetal Grove and Rootbound Crag, because if you look, most of the lands in this deck actually have synergy with making sure that they don't come into play tapped in the turns that we really need them, the turns 3, 4, 5, and so on in late game. So there's really not a lot of lands that come into play tapped late. The only ones that even have a chance to come into play tapped late in the game are the Evolving Wilds, which, to be honest with you, that's not something that I've tested with. That's something that I've taken upon recommendation really should be in the deck, being that it's 4 color. So now that I've explained the mana base, the card for card choices, and exactly why we're running a lot of them, I want to take a look at them in groups. And the first group I want to take a look at is the threats, the meat of the deck, the creatures. I personally believe that this is the most powerful creature package a deck can offer in Standard right now. You run the Restoration Angel Blink package along with a top-end card that's going to clear the path for those cards. So you have the Thragtusk, you have the Armada Worms, you have the Huntmasters, all with great game-ending capabilities with the synergy of Restoration Angel, and then you have the Angel of Serenity to come over the top, remove any of the threats that you need to deal with, and end the game. The next package that I'd like to take a look at is the removal package. Now, it's maybe not the heaviest removal package that we've seen in a mid-range deck, but I think it's one of the most versatile we'll ever see in a standard mid-range deck. First of all, you got the Dreadbores. Not only are they going to deal with the creatures, but now you have something that deals with planeswalkers, and that's very powerful. You've got the 2 Selesnya Charms, and those are very versatile in many ways that we've already talked about. And then the Bonfire of the Damned. You can play it hardcast, or you can just miracle it and likely end the game. So I like all of these cards to take care of my opponent's creatures. I think that the way that they're spread out, there's not a lot of creatures that can duck what's going on here. Sigarda's probably the only one that survives most all of these. And I could see people playing Sigarda, but you have the Bonfire, it's going to take care of the Geist of St. Traphs, and you have the Dreadbores that are going to take care of the really big guys as well as the Selesnya charm. So you can take care of Grizzlebrand and all the Frights Reanimator guys with that bad boy. And our last package is our direct damage package. You know, obviously the Rakdos return and the Bonfire have more implications than just burning over the top, but I really do believe that decks like this and decks that are aggro and basis even should have the ability to have some reach. So your opponent, you know, they've stabilized, they've fended off your creatures, you know, a control deck, they've wrathed out your dudes, they've got them on lockdown. A Bonfire off the top or a Rakdos return can just end the game anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick little review. You can go ahead and take a look and see what we got going on with the deck. I'm going to go over the sideboard, but again, I just wanted to remind you to check us out at www.facebook.com/gamecorps, spelled CORPS, LLC, and you can find us on there. And if you do, you'll see we also have a link to our Twitch TV account. Tomorrow, Friday at 6 p.m., October 5th, we're going to have a live stream. So if you want to see how this deck performs, this deck will be playing on it all day. So if you're a little skeptical about what I've shown you here, or you just want to see how to play the deck a little bit before you dive into it, that's going to be a good opportunity for you to check it out. If you go to twitchtv.com, you just find the Game Core channel, and you'll be able to link right on there, subscribe to us, see what's going on. Now, as far as the sideboard, we don't know exactly how this meta is going to shape up yet, so there's not really any set card that you know you need yet. But I think we all suppose that black-green zombies is going to be pretty prevalent, and though this deck already does a pretty good job against it, you know, there's a few cards in here that are going to be strong for. So, all right, so the first sideboard card is going to be the one that you probably think is the most unlikely. I don't know if this is on too many people's radar, but I happen to like it a lot. Centaur Healer at 3 mana, 3/3, gain 3 life, feels a lot like Kitchen Finks to me. And in a matchup that's really aggressive, you're going to want a guy like this to come down a little bit earlier in your curve than, say, a Huntmaster. So even though this deck is already pretty well poised against the black-green zombies and other aggro decks, it's never going to hurt to have something that comes out a little bit earlier to deal with some of these really quick draws that these decks can have. The next card that I have on here is Wolf for Silverheart. Honestly, I haven't decided exactly where the application of this will fit in, but there's a lot of decks that we haven't seen yet, and I can't theorize as to every deck that could possibly be in the meta. But Wolf for Silverheart in a format that doesn't have a lot of removal that deals with a guy as big as him seems really good. So I wanted him to be available in one of these early tournaments and to see where he goes. Now the next one, Ground Seal, I chose it over Rest in Peace. And the reason I did that is because I feel like Rest in Peace is going to be better against zombies, but not as good against frights. Now, ultimately, I've already got 4 Abrupt Decay and 4 Centaur Healers coming in against zombies, so I can't see needing to board in 2 Graveyard Hating spells in addition to that for the zombies. Now, against frights, they're pretty similar, except the extra card draw just kind of threw this over the edge for me. So we'll see if that's the right play. I like it. Now, the 4 Abrupt Decay in the sideboard, that's where I really like to see this card. I understand that it is very powerful, and I think it's going to be one of the best cards in some of the older formats, taking care of a lot of things that Delver, Counterbalance, things of that nature. So this card's very valuable, and it's very good. I think its power in Standard is just a little bit overstated. Again, if you even just look at this deck and how Abrupt Decay would fare against it, I don't think that it would be great. Obviously, you could take out Armada Worm tokens and Thragtusk tokens and Key Ruins and stuff like that, but I don't think that it's going to miss just a little bit too much of the good stuff for me to be main decking it. I mean, we'll see how the metagame shapes up, but at the same time, I can't see how it would hurt being relegated to the sideboard until we know exactly what kind of cards it's going to be good against. Running the 4th copy of the Dreadbore so that if I run into a Planeswalker match, which, you know, I could definitely see a deck built around Planeswalkers, and then last but not least, 2 more Rakdos return. I'm going to board these in every time I play against Control, every time I play against Midrange, the Mirror Match, Bant, Jund, whatever it may be, just whenever I'm not playing zombies or some kind of aggro. So I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for watching the video. Please leave us some support, whether it's some likes or even a dislike. Just whatever you felt about it, just please let us know. I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see somebody playing this deck. I will be in Butler on the 14th playing this at PA State, so if you see me there and you have any suggestions, feel free to come up and talk to me. Thanks a lot.